All right. What's up, cops? I'm Lydia here in Nashville, and Marcus is here with me.
Hi, what's up, Copts? I'm Marcus. I am in Ottawa, Canada.
And we also have Becca with us here today.
Hi,
Hey!
I'm Becca. I live in LA.
Oh, fun. Have you always been in LA?
No, I moved there like 5 years ago, I think, right before the pandemic.
Okay. Where were you before?
Philly.
Okay, interesting.
Mhm.
Interesting. We're really excited to have you today for an episode of Cool Cops.
Thank you.
It's really cool to see a Coptic woman out here on a stage and
Thank
performing
you.
and being her best self.
Thank
Could
you.
you kind of talk about how you got into that? What was the process? I'm sure a lot of people maybe didn't like it, and
Of
what was
course.
going on there? Yeah.
Yeah, of course, I'd love to. I, it's funny the way I talk about acting and how I found it is like so spiritual in nature. I really feel like it was like a calling for me. I have no memories before wanting to
Mm,
be like a singer, dancer, model, actor. I just always knew this was going to be my life. And
mm.
what's very funny about it, I love telling Coptic people this because my mother is a fantastic singer and like
Oh,
sang, like publicly at the church and like in like
oh
little
wow.
concerts and stuff in Egypt. And my dad was a child actor. And the way he tells the story is that he says that he did plays. And of course, they didn't tell me this until I was like, we fought for years and well
Yeah.
into his career. And he's like, well, I was an actor. But yeah, he like was a child actor, and because he was a young boy, they gave him a part for a girl, and his dad found out and made him quit and made him become a shamis at the church.
Uh,
Um,
he said
so
enough is enough.
yeah,
The radicals.
it's definitely
Repentance.
Yeah.
definitely in my blood for sure. Yeah, I just always wanted to be a
Mm,
performer. I often say that like I knew I was going to be an actor when I saw the Cheetah Girls. So I was very, very young, and my parents had no idea what that meant. But I told them that I would go into acting so that I could be a lawyer, and then obviously that was a lie. So worked out.
that's pretty good.
So, how they were convinced though? Like, did it like
How do I
about
move there?
how they were convinced? Like,
She was gonna
going
be a
to
lawyer,
she's
Marcus.
How were they convinced? It's interesting because they were convinced and not convinced during different parts of my life. It was not a linear journey, like whatsoever. I think that somewhere in my parents' hearts, they really wanted me to pursue the dreams they never got to, you
Mhm.
know? So when it came down to like, am I going to go to performing arts high school? Like, they had to have known I was lying, like they knew I was not going to be a lawyer. Like, and so I think somewhere in them, they really wanted me to pursue that dream. It was really about, your dreams are cool in concept, but in practice, they are very, very difficult. And some, some, um, you know, some certain parts of my lifestyle, some of my values, the way I dress, the way I present, the way I talk, all of these things were the real points of contention
Hmm.
between us. And they related to my career, but they were not always, they didn't want me to go to the show until midnight. That was an issue.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It wasn't necessarily about going out or about being in the show. It was about being connected.
Mm.
But my brother, if he went to church until 7 in the morning, it would be
Y-
like, our angel son, Habibi, wala, good for him.
It's interesting that you mentioned, Becca, how your parents, you started with your parents' talents that they might have not been able to pursue when they
For
moved
sure.
to the US, and how that affected you, especially also. I grew up with like, my mom is the one who taught me the hymns, and this is how I became like a singer in at the church, and I loved hymns through that. Um, and how your dad. So was your dad like performing at like publicly in Egypt, or was it like a church theater kind of things?
I don't really know the
Yeah.
details. The way he tells it, he was like a professional actor as a child. And then his dad didn't want him to pursue it, and he ended up becoming a more prevalent part of the church. But my dad is like my family are storytellers, all of them. So I definitely get it from them. Um, uh, yeah, I never saw my dad like perform, but he's like life of the party. He's that like traditional Egyptian guy, like gather around and tell a story.
Mm. Oh.
That's the thing with like with our parents of like um they have a lot of talents, but for some reason, whether it's immigration, whether sometimes how they need to present at church or something, people might have like different personas. So yeah, it's interesting to see that. So you like in a way, do they now think that, oh, you fulfilled one of our dreams?
I think again, progress is not linear. So like when I'm on TV, they're like, "That's my daughter." And when I'm not on TV, they're like, "Quisiera, Becca, why don't you become a pharmacist?"
Yeah.
It's not linear. I
Mm.
think like last year, my dad was like, "You should join a soccer team." I was like, "Bro, a little too late to get the soccer in my life." But they try the best way they know how, and I find that really
Mm.
I love it.
And so you grew up in Philly.
Yeah.
Okay, what was it like there? Did you grow up
North
with a large Coptic community?
I don't I don't know. Like I don't yes, in many ways, yes. And in many ways, like I was very isolated, very American in my own way. I went to the Norristown church primarily. So we did all the competitions. Like, I went to ECQIC a number of years. But I just always, I don't know, I always asked the wrong questions. I was always just like used as an example. I remember like I was taking a feminist philosophy class at UPenn, and I was in high school, I was a senior, and I was taking it at the local college. I was so proud. I was taking a local college class in feminism, and and I went to like a retreat with one of it was the Cherry Hill Church at the time,
Mm.
St. Anthony's Church, and I went, which I love that parish. I went with them to a retreat, and I think it was either a very highly respected Abuna or Emma David, and one of them was there, and they were like using an example about like anything too much can be bad. So like even feminism, like even,
Mm.
and that was the example he used. Even feminism too much can be bad, and
Mm.
everybody looked at me. Like everybody knew I was in this class, and it was a whole thing. I just had so many experiences like that as a
Mm.
kid. And again, progress was not linear. Like I found my own like spiritual journey, regardless of
Mm.
whether or not I felt like connected with other other kids in the.
Mm. So you were the person they expected to respond? Yeah. They were like, you got this, but
Oh yeah, people hate me because of Facebook, so it is what it
oh, we gotta go check out
is.
the Facebook.
I'm a Facebook politician. What can I say?
So
I should have gone that down to check these posts, or you remove
Yeah.
them.
Again, it's interesting. I think like I haven't taken anything down, but the Trump election will come around, and I'm not one to not say anything,
mm,
so that
mm,
I might participate in a conversation that I might, it's not really gonna go where I want it to. It's not gonna go where they want it to. They always escalate, and you
mm.
know, but then if I'm on TV, everybody forgets.
So how was the move to LA? LA is very
Um,
different from Philly.
yeah, LA is really different from Philly.
Period.
Ironically, Ironically, I moved out here and I felt like the need to find my community at like a
Mm,
really strong,
mm,
in a really strong way, because I was suddenly like, I was very alone and only Americans
mm,
around, and that can be very isolating in many ways. And
mm,
you meet a Coptic person, and they really like they they'll adopt you like such a family, and
mm,
that's such a beautiful thing about our
mm,
culture, that we feel so familiar that way, familial that way, and yeah. But it is very different. People here are different.
mm.
Yeah.
What would you say? Would you say your Coptic identity clashes with the work you do, or it
In less,
accommodates, or
in less ways
I'm
than
curious.
people think. Yeah. I mean,
Mm,
everybody, this is a really hard career. It's a really hard
mm,
industry. Everybody has something that they rely on to
mm,
give them that strength. And for a lot of people, that's God. So
mm,
it's not really that weird. I feel very like, I can feel, to speak openly about my spirituality with my peers in the industry very openly, because all need something, and
mm,
whatever language you have around God, that is the same. And I grew up very resentful of the church and my place in
mm,
the community, but
mm,
as an adult, I feel very like grateful, and I feel very
mm,
respectful in many ways
mm,
of the ways that our community has evolved to survive
mm,
and
mm,
clung to each other in order to do that. Um,
mm.
we all need something.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just another way to say we all need God,
Yeah.
This is so beautiful,
Mm,
Becca, because I think sometimes folks, when they see a Copt who is not mainstream, who is not going with most of the flow of the community or
Right.
the church part of the community, they feel like, oh, how do they talk about God, or how do they talk about
Yeah.
community? They think of these people as like fringe.
mm,
They don't want anything to do with the community,
mm,
um or the beauty of the community or the heritage. So you have been speaking about, like you mentioned, God a couple of times. You
Yeah.
mentioned community a couple of times. It seems like it's central to your identity. So tell us more about this.
Yeah, it
mm,
definitely is. I find it, I mean, I have a big mouth, but I'm very resentful of people who are like, "Well, do you even pray?
mm,
What's even your relationship with God?" Like,
mm,
just because I don't use the
mhm,
language or view the world the way you do doesn't mean I don't have a relationship. And even with my parents, this is a point of contention. They're like, "Well, do you?" I
mm,
don't
mm,
want to tell you about my relationship with God, because for me, that I've grown up with so much context around it that now I'm putting pressure on like
mm,
my relationship with God. I don't even have really the right words to say it, but when people get involved, I start to get resentful. And I
mm,
start to add like a context to a relationship with God that has nothing to do with culture and perspective and politics and whatever other stuff. That's your relationship with God and your relationship with the universe or the Lord, or however people want to view it. And that is very central to me. And I almost never speak publicly about this subject for that same
mm,
reason. I want people to be like, it doesn't, my relationship to God is irrelevant. Your relationship to God and your view on how I live my life does not diminish my relationship to God
mm,
and your perspective of my relationship to God, because that's all. I'm like talking in a circle, but I think that's very, we've, we've for better or worse, I think,
mm,
evolved to be very judgmental in many ways. If for many people, me cutting my hair short was like, whoa, you know, does she even practice? And I don't. I like to live in that between space because
Mm,
I don't feel that I'm
mm,
conflicting with my relationship with God, then that is none of anybody else's business, you know.
mm, mm,
I challenge them to open their ideas of what a relationship with God could be that is non-judgmental.
mm. I feel like that's such an actory thing to say because actors are very used to, um, shedding themselves and using their full body and spirit for the sake of another character and story.
Yeah.
Um, I've always been intrigued with that because I would be a terrible actor. Because I can't superset, like, what is it called? Supersede myself or suspend myself.
Is that,
Yes, there we go. Suspend myself for the sake of, another character,
yeah.
another storyline. Um, did you like take acting classes and like how did
Um,
you get into this like training wise? Yeah, yeah.
when I was in high school,
Okay.
actually when I was in I mean, I always knew I wanted to be an actor. And when I was in elementary
Mm,
school, I found this like performing arts
mm,
public school. And
mm,
I like tried to apply behind my parents' back. That's another thing I think my mom like figured out I was doing and like helped me actually apply to this performing arts high school. And so I
mm,
was an acting major in high school from like, that's when I really did the lie. I was like, I'm going to go to performing arts high school and major in acting and be a lawyer. And then when I was in high school, I was like well into applying for colleges
mm,
for performing arts, like
mm.
well into auditioning and taking it very
Wow.
seriously as a career. And
Wow.
you know, and that is really where I think the largest point of contention with
Mm,
me and my family happened because I think that's really when it got real that I was going to
mm,
do this thing that was very difficult.
mm. So you went for college for this, for acting and performance. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I
What
have college.
was your most memorable performance in your opinion? For yourself, not like for critics.
Mm, that's a really, really good question for this venue. I did a piece. There's this actress named Heather Raffo. She's an Iraqi American. And
Oh,
she wrote a play called Nine Parts of Desire that I actually auditioned to college with. Um, I loved her I still love her so much. She's a
fascinating.
fantastic artist in the community. And she came and did a piece called Places of Pilgrimage, where she asked a bunch of women in our program to write about their own journey.
Mm,
And so I was selected, and I wrote
mm,
basically about how I felt that religion was the barrier that
hmm,
prevented me from having a relationship with my family. And I
mm,
did this piece, and I remember my parents came and my brother came, and I had no idea they were going to come. And my brother,
mm,
I mean, my brother has such a fantastic relationship with the Lord.
mm, mm.
He bawled his eyes out, like, I
Wow.
mean, and my
Wow.
parents never spoke of it again. It was definitely the most memorable thing. I think the first line of the
Mm,
poem was, I mean, I was like 19.
mm,
Find God in my soul.
mm,
And it was
mm,
about how that was
mm,
to me, what was keeping me from having a relationship with my family. Again, my
mm,
progress wasn't linear. I still had a relationship with God at that time, but it was really like the
mm,
language of God. Everything I like knew of
mm,
religion felt like a
mm,
barrier between me and bonding with my family. And
mm,
that's such a hard thing for like a first
mm,
generation, especially a Coptic American. Like your religion is integral to your identity as a person.
mm,
And to question
mm,
your religion at all is to question your relationship with your family,
mm,
relationship with the world. You're even questioning religion is questioning a
mm,
relationship with God in a way that other faiths don't even have.
mm,
You always believe in God and question your relationship with being a Coptic person. But
mm,
we can't do that because being Coptic is our identity. It's
mm,
so integral to us. Um,
mm,
which is
It,
why that progress isn't linear. I think I always had a relationship with God.
mm. Mm.
It's interesting from what I'm hearing you talking, Becca. This like when we question things in our communities, especially around religion, spirituality, um, people tend to connect everything together. While what I'm hearing is, uh, I like when you talked about how judgmental some people in our communities could be about, like, oh, did you go to church? Did you pray? I think of my grandparents, four of them. They have never asked that question. They haven't thought about this. They were very pious people.
Mhm.
But it was, I think, for us in our community, in our Coptic communities, it wasn't as institutionalized.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes I think like it is, and that's why when folks are challenging this idea of like, is it like religion? Is it culture? Is like sometimes I say, it's the institution, or sometimes
Yeah.
the current it's and the church institution, um, can be sometimes good, can be sometimes not as good, or part of it. So what do you think of this, like, maybe is it the religion that was the barrier, the institution, the
Right.
spirituality, the culture, or a mix of some stuff together?
Definitely a mix. I mean, I hear you saying that, like, in Egypt, our families did not ask each other this question in the same way that we're asking each other here. So I hear you pointing out that this is like a way we have evolved to connect as a community, again, for better or worse, and to hold each other to high standards, which is important. I don't think that it's ever religion or community. It's always a combination of all of it. Um, it's never. Uh, it's not in the Bible to, to have certain beliefs or certain rigidness to certain things that we do. Um, oh, but it's not the person's fault. It's not the text's fault. It's not it's just a combination of all of it, I think. And I think that when you feel challenged, of course you hold strongly to your beliefs. And we are, as a church, constantly, I mean, it's in our very definition as a culture that we are like constantly on the brink of extinction, and that we are needing to survive.
Mm. Do you plan to ever write again? Maybe
Right.
about your experiences or a screenplay?
Yeah, I'm writing a workplace sitcom about working at the escape room.
Working at the escape room? When did you work in an escape room?
I've been working at an escape room for like 10 years. It's my go-to day job. Every time I'm
10
like between
years?
acting job, I just like look up escape room jobs. I go there, I play all the games. I
Oh
like
my gosh.
quit, get hired.
That's such a
my,
specific thing, an
it's my
escape
life
room.
hack. Find a niche interest.
Absolutely. Like, and I think actually, if you can talk more to us about how did you come to that? I guess positivity, playfulness part of yourself.
Oh yeah.
Even when you talk about the culture, like, I myself tend to get deep perspective, and like, and then the conversation would get heavy. But every time that we're trying to get the conversation heavy here, you go to like a playful
Yeah.
place, and I think our community need more of that, need more of play, pleasure, joy, while it's still rooted. Like, if we do these things, and we can also be rooted into our culture.
Yeah.
So tell us more about how did you come to this place, or how do you see yourself that way?
Thank you for saying that. I really, really appreciate that. It's a very high compliment to me. I really want to say demi tatif. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes, you are.
I feel like that in English translation, we lose a lot of like those idiosyncrasies that make us so particularly. I mean, in Egypt, like alaros, like you lose that in the English translation, and I find that sad. And I also think that like when you're a culture, or when you're a people that is like constantly suffering, I mean, and they're like American communities in many ways exhibit the same thing. Like, you are suffering, you must find joy in everything. And like, I'm not like a perky person because like nothing happened to me. I'm a perky person because I felt like, for language reasons, for culture reasons, for religious reasons, I felt unheard, I felt misunderstood. So I resented that for so long. And as soon as I started, looking at things individually, and just having a more objective perspective of everyone trying their best just to survive, just to connect with each other. I mean, everything got a little funnier. I think people they're funny. I think both. I think that when you really remember that everybody's trying their best, then everything seems a bit sillier. You know, and I
That's a
think
beautiful
it's
note.
very important to keep the pain and the joy as interlocked as possible at any moment. Like, I do shows or I go to a New Year's Eve party and I'm gonna wear the kuya to this one for sure. Like, there's something about like, you cannot ignore sad stuff to have joy, and you cannot be joyous really without the sad stuff.
What are you currently working on?
That's a great question. That was really. I am writing that sitcom, like I said. I'm writing a play, actually, an immersive play that takes place in the Garden of Eden.
Okay, interesting.
I
Immersive with the crowd, like the audience?
Yeah. So basically, do you know the story of Lilith at all? It's based
Vaguely.
off of an old Jewish myth, but essentially she's like a before religious, don't tell anyone. But essentially, it's a fictional story about how Adam and Lilith were both made out of dirt, and Lilith upset the balance of things in the garden and banishes Lilith from the garden. In the garden, she's essentially just gonna get mad and burn down the tree. And then the tree is going to grow again, and Eve will come, and the audience has to view everything very objectively. It's basically like nobody in the story is a bad guy. You're just viewing people, again, trying their best, but in the barest of circumstances. And what do you learn about how we're supposed to interact with each other when there is nothing to teach you but other animals and plants? And that's like my interest in retellings of Adam and Eve. They're fictional stories. Okay. And other than that, I work at Universal Studios as a tour guide.
Oh.
And at an escape room, and I'm auditioning. And
yeah. What's your fun fact about touring Universal Studios?
What's my favorite fact about?
Yeah.
Okay, my favorite fact that I have on my tour is that when there's a place called Colonial Street, and so usually I say, many people will recognize this as Wisteria Lane from Desperate Housewives, but I will always know it as Nellyville from Nelly's music video for Dilemma. That's when where Kelly Rowland texts in the Excel spreadsheet, and she's like, "Why isn't he texting me back?" That's a music video.
Oh.
That's my favorite fact on the tour. It's only on my tour. You'll never hear it on another.
So I shared this is so interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us, Becca. Folks, that's Becca's Instagram. Go follow Becca. It is a very it is a very fun and playful and very creative Instagram page. I also I was able to watch a little bit of Run the World, and so Run the World. Do you want to tell us?
Yeah,
I actually really liked that show, and it was interesting because I kept pointing you out. Like, yes, I know there were like big stars and stuff like that, but it's like it it feels so nice
It feels
see
better for me.
a copt on the screen. So tell us more about this show
Sure,
and your
Road to
role there,
World.
and how were you able to get
Yeah.
connected to it?
Who knows, man? Who knows? I got a self tape, just like I said, I'm auditioning. I got self tapes, and I film them right here where you're seeing me, and I do the tape, and they liked me. And this one was in the middle of the pandemic, so I hadn't worked for months and had no work coming. And when I went and filmed the show, it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. I mean, everybody, I find a lot of circular moments, things that close full circle. And one of the actors that performed in the show, he was like the businessman that shows up for the episode. He was in the very first play I ever saw, which was Legally Blonde the musical on MTV, and he was Emmett. And I was like, I remember seeing that, and I was like, theater really is a pathway for me, you know. Everybody on this show is an incredible, incredible performer, like leader of their craft, and an incredibly kind person. They really welcomed me. We played bananagrams in the green room all the time, and it was just a fantastic time. And I was really lucky that it did get canceled during the actors strike, but there was such upward growth from my character from the first season to the second season. They like really maximized my character and created that second season's episode with my character as a primary plot point, and that was really an amazing feeling to feel like progressive growth in my career.
Yeah, and I have to I have to say the show was unconventional in many ways. It was so interesting to see many, I guess, like academic concepts or
I think so
talking,
as well.
yeah, talking about like race issues in a very easy to digest ways, a very and this is always my challenge to academics and scholars. I'm a frontliner, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
if you can make the amazing concepts that you teach digestible or to for folks who are not in these circles, that would be great. And it was mind blowing to have these things like interwoven into the script. So it was fascinating to see that.
Yeah, even the growth from season one to season two. I mean, in season one, my episode arc was that I accidentally popped a Molly at the club. And then in the second season, it was about her lack of advocacy to me as her POC coworker. And that's such a huge, shift in interest. And yeah, I was really impressed by the show.
When I saw the scene about popping up the Molly, I felt like, huh. So, at any of your, I guess, quote unquote, by some provocative acts that you do, either on set or in real life, do you get folks from the community or from family coming back to you and say, how did you do that? Oh,
You know,
how dare you do that? Like, what's the reaction though?
yes, I do get a lot of different kinds of reactions. I think that I've always been like a funky kid, so people ask me less now as an adult than they might ask someone else. But I mean, with that one, my mom is like, "Hey, you date that? Seen that?" Like she's not like they're not like is on ecstasy, like they're not
Yeah.
like. They're. I think they like find other like yeah. She's Dexa is always my favorite. Like she's a little in this one. But the funniest is like I do this show called The Poetry Brothel, which is just a poetry show. It's just, but the idea is that you come up to me and you give me like these like poker chips that cost $10. I make $7 per. And so they give me the poker chips, and I take them and I read a poem to them privately. So the idea is that it's like a private service like a brothel. And I know a lot of my Egyptian relatives are like Google translating my posts. So I got tons of messages about like, what is this brothel that, like, um, and my mom has a lot of questions about this picture, I'll be honest. But but for the most part, I mean, I'm wearing a suit. Okay, I am wearing pants.
You should
And
have gone into law.
everything is covered. And the poem that I do is basically about how like I hate it when people look at me, but I hate it when they don't. So the idea of them looking at me is very important, and also looking at me in that way is very important because it's all commentary about, especially this show. All of my poems are about like women who have been scorned by men, so they're all very negative about male perspective of my body, and I make a lot of commentary about that. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And that's interesting, honestly,
Get a
because
lot of questions
sorry,
though.
no, what
I
was
do
that?
get a lot of questions though.
Oh, so what other questions? I'm curious because it's like I wanted also to mention on your Instagram page. It's like it's full of life. It's full of fun and pleasure and body positivity. And I think in our communities we really need to reclaim our bodies and really celebrate them. So
Yeah.
anyway, so this is a side note. If you want to reflect on it, or
No,
also bring questions, other questions that you mentioned.
no, that's a great comment. I mean, it's a great comment because that is something that really I resented a lot as a child. That like I always had a particular kind of body, and all of the language about it was that I was welcoming or warranting or doing something to get the attention, no matter what I did. And I went through ups and downs. I'm still on ups and down journeys of how I'm dealing with the male gaze. Period. But that is for me to unpack, not for a Sunday school teacher to tell me how to do that. I think in many ways, Sunday school teachers are your mentors, and they remember that they are guiding you to handle these things that are tough in the world and that are going to inevitably happen to you. But I had a lot of resentment for people telling me how I was supposed to handle it and that it was my fault. And so I've, reclaimed a lot of that in a lot of ways. And I think that my body is a fact, and I deal with that fact. And also, the rest of my life is also a fact, and I handle that fact too.
Such a cool Coptic person. I love
Ah,
that we know a Coptic actress out here because sometimes Coptic celebrities can be disappointing, you know? So we got to have someone who's up there.
thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
What's going on in your future?
I'm gonna be a regular on a sitcom. Just you wait. But I don't
I
know
would
when.
love that
I don't know when, and I don't have it in the
because you
book.
seem to
But
do a lot of serious stuff too.
what
Even
what'd you
though
say?
you seem to do a lot of serious, like feminist leading stuff. So I
Yeah.
feel like, yeah. Have you done a lot of comedy as well?
Yeah, it's so funny. It really
Mm.
depends on the audience. 50% of the people in my life are like, "You're a comedy actor," and then the other 50% is like, "You have sad eyes." Like
Not
I
the
don't really
eyes.
know. I think that I I definitely do a lot of
Mm.
comedy right now. Like Run the World is
Mm.
primarily comedy, even though I got to be
Oh,
mad
okay.
in season 2. But Run the World is primarily comedy.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Is that
but
only on Stars?
it is
Is that
only
the only
on
place?
Stars.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know, but that's okay. You can watch pretty much all the scenes on my Instagram anyway. All the scenes I'm in. No, yeah, I've been really lucky to do a lot of
Mm,
comedy, and I get to do most of the work I
mm,
create is very dramatic. Like writing wise, I'm
mm,
very dramatic in nature, but I'm a
mm,
quirky person, so I bring a level of
yeah.
like, you know, poetry brothel to the poetry. Like it's
Mm.
never super dark. It's gotta have like I said, it's gotta have the joy.
Yeah, yeah,
How about the farewell?
The
yeah.
farewell. Okay, that was a lucky break, bro. I don't even know. Okay, again, I've been really lucky, really blessed to do a lot of theater, and
Mm,
my journey in theater has been awesome, and really, like the people I've gotten to work with have been
You were
amazing.
in the farewell?
I was in one little scene in the laundromat when she pays her rent. That's me.
Okay,
And it was the
cool.
very first film I ever got to book. Like before that, I
Okay.
was working in theater, but I was,
You're on
auditioning
a
for
movie set.
TV. Yeah. And I had no idea who anybody was until the end of the day, and I tried to get them to follow me on Instagram, and I was like, oh, I guess you are Aquafina. My bad. But her name was Nora. I said, hi, Nora, why
Yeah.
not follow me on Instagram? Yeah, it was
Wow.
amazing.
So, do you resonate more to being an actor or a poet, a scriptwriter? Like, what are other talents, or like
Mm.
you mix them all? Like, what do you
That's
think?
Thank you. That's a great question. I mean, I think that most recently I've been saying that my job is words. Like
Mm.
10 is like my job is beach. Like my job is just words. Um, I love words. I love language. I think I'm like hyper aware of the English language because it was the only thing I had, and I I like anything where I can play with words. I'm definitely an actor,
Mm.
but I'm also definitely a performer, and anything that I can perform or create to perform,
Mm.
I'm inclined to do so.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
What are some words of advice that you would give to aspiring Coptic artists of any medium?
Use it.
Mm.
um, there will always be haters.
Mm.
There will always be haters, but what makes you weird and what makes you special is what also
Mm.
makes you an artist. So just go and use it and keep going and never quit. And in 50 years, everybody else is going to quit because it is impossibly hard and you'll still be there. And that's when you'll get the job.
Yeah. That's the strategy there.
That's what they tell you. That's the
Yeah.
truth. Because
Mm.
everybody else is going to drop away like flies. But I'm going to go to the same casting audition
Mm.
until they're annoyed at me being there every day. I'm
Mm.
going to go to the same, I'm going to sell that same piece of art. I'm going to go to
Mm.
audition and I'm going to make them see me until it's annoying
Mm. Mm.
and I'll get the job.
We need to
Love it.
host more
Yeah.
artists.
Yeah.
Lately.
I mean, my most recent, I was
Mm.
planning on saying this, but like recently
Mm.
I've been doing whatever I can to work with other Swana Middle Eastern artists in any way,
Mm.
shape, or form. Especially since I did the show at the Goodman, and it was an Iraqi American story, and
Mm.
they were an Assyrian family, which is
Mm.
so similar to the Coptic
Copts.
experience,
Mm.
and relating to, I mean, the actors in the show were Palestinian and Assyrian and Iraqi, and it was just an incredible experience to be surrounded by like different versions of my own struggle.
Mm.
People who also like pushed it all aside to be true to themselves
Mm.
and and didn't uh, let that deter from what they really
Mm.
believe to be true. Um, and now this weekend, there's a festival called Between the East in Los Angeles. That's um, a Middle Eastern artist-centered organization. There's one in New York called Yalla Punk.
Yeah.
That is an artist-centered smaller organization. And there's just so much of us out there. And even if you're not an artist, like
Mm.
I encourage you to go and be a part of these communities and see
Mm.
what the fringe of your own community is doing, because I'm not going out into the world and not saying I'm Coptic. I'm still Coptic.
Mm.
I'm still representing the community. So
Mm.
it would behoove you to recognize that.
Do,
Mm.
do you wanna start or create a Coptic caucus inside these
Mm.
It would be
spaces?
cool, but there needs to be more than Mina Masood and me. It can't. It can't. I have been meeting more
Mm.
Coptic artists, but
Mm.
it's already a hurdle as a Middle Eastern artist because there's a lot of culture. But when you
Mm.
decide that religion is also a barrier, it doesn't have to be. You don't
Mm.
have to do jobs that go against your religion. Nobody's forcing you to do that.
Mm.
So just remember that there are possibilities out there, and there are other actors who have nothing to do with your religion or your culture who also have hard no's that they will not do. I will not,
Mm.
be naked in a show. Sure, you can have that hard no. Say that to your representation, and know, even before you get representation, know that it's still a pathway for you, even if you want to live your life in a certain
Mm.
way.
Mm.
Don't let things be a barrier to you that don't have to be.
Mm.
You're giving us a lot of insight inside the
Mm.
industry, because I think maybe there, or at least this is what I have heard, the parents' generation would say to folks getting into art, oh, هتقلعي on set, or لازم, you would have to be kissed at every show, or stuff like that.
I
So,
don't have to do the poetry brothel. I do but I
Mm.
don't have to. That's not what's gonna. I think people have this idea that you have to do certain things to be famous. If you're good, you don't have to do anything. If
Mm.
you work on your craft, if you're the best accountant in the world, you don't have to work for the mafia. Like, it doesn't.
Mm.
You do what you do the best you can, and you say, this is what I bring to the table as an artist,
Mm.
and you either take that or you don't. And if you have faith, which is why people really need God in the industry, if you have
Mm.
faith and you know that somebody's out there looking out for you, making sure that your dreams get accomplished, then you know that I am enough. I don't need to go into there and give anything more than what I have.
Mm.
And if they don't want me for that, then that's that.
Mm.
And for
Mm.
many people, that's also like, you know, for many people, those walls aren't, I don't know. There are certain things that I don't mind doing because I don't really have a negative view
Mm.
on them spiritually. So
Mm.
why would I put a negative connotation on something that I don't? Especially as an actor, I look at the character as a person, not like the things they're asking me to do. I view that character as like, if you're doing a movie about the Holocaust and they ask you to play a Nazi, you better play that you better play that Nazi to the best of your ability. Because if you don't, you're doing a disservice to the story of these Holocaust survivors surviving through everything. You have to be true to that. And if you want to tell that story with the best of your ability, then you have to put all of that in there. So everybody's got their own like barometer of what they can and cannot do for their job or for the art.
Mm.
That's,
Mm.
again, somebody's own decision.
Mm. I've really appreciated you sharing your story about being resilient and the endurance that you've had to go through and put up with as being an artist and being specifically Coptic. Is there kind of a final note for our audience, artists and allies and everyone in the Coptic community and non-Coptic community, about your work, where they can catch up with you? Yeah.
I do. Yeah, follow me on Instagram. I do
Yeah.
want to say, because it's my brother's birthday, so it would be a
Oh,
disservice not to say happy birthday to my brother. I don't
he's a
think he'll ever
Pisces.
watch this, and I actually hope he doesn't. But I am going to speak very positively about him for a second, because my
Aw.
brother, for a lot of my childhood, was like
Mm.
the epitome of a perfect Coptic child, and it caused so much resentment. And
Mm.
I wanted to be anything but the perfect Coptic child for so long. And
Mm.
like, to applaud my brother for his ever continuous growth. He
Mm.
really constantly reminds me what it means to be close to God in a true way and not in a presentative way. But he
Mm.
has allowed God to like only opened his world, and
Mm.
how he can like show love to people whose relationship to God maybe doesn't
Mm.
resonate with him particularly. And
Mm.
he's only ever worked hard. And me and my brother are complete opposites in every way except for our sense of humor. And I just want to say that, like, for any Coptic person out there are allies, even in places that you don't imagine.
Mm.
There are ammuls who would call my dad and be like, do not let her quit this. This is what she's supposed to do. So
Mm.
just know that just like there are haters everywhere, there are always going to be people who are
Mm,
silently rooting for you everywhere you go.
mm,
Even the people you think are your biggest haters, my parents might hate that I pursue this art, but if a taunt calls them on the phone, my mom will defend me till her dying
mm,
breath. So
mm,
just know that like that love is twofold.
mm.
Um, but yeah, you can follow me on Instagram to see me say erratic things on my story and post things on my page. If you want to see me politically, that's Facebook. So like
Mm,
Instagram is where I'd post like um, what's going on in Palestine, and Facebook is where I'd
mm,
be like, I do not stand with Israel. How about that? So
mm,
it's really all about what the name of your game is, where you want to follow
mm.
me.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time, Becca.
Thank
Good to get to
you.
know you. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I hope I said anything that made sense.
Yeah, yeah.
It's beautiful. Thank you, Becca.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll see y'all soon on the next episode with cool Coptic people